As a boy chorister in the 1960s, growing up in Victoria, we did Advent carol services. So the church was in darkness. And yes, we had real candles, tapers, with little bits of cardboard on the bottom so we didn't spill wax all over the church. We tried very hard not to light the person in front of you's hair. And we sang the Matin responsory. I look from afar, and lo, I see the power of God coming, and a cloud covering the whole earth. Go ye out to meet him and say, and then we would sing, Come thou, Redeemer of the earth. And then we would sing, Adam lay bounden, the angel Gabriel from heaven came, and lo, he comes with clouds descending. And no, I don't remember the theology of these. I didn't have any sense of them. I loved the music. I loved the experience. Experience is a key word for me throughout all my life, both as a lay and ordained leader, and really even back to the time of my childhood. I am legally blind. That's why sometimes you'll see me coming very close to the screen. Some find it awkward. Just ignore it. It's what I have to do in order to be able to function. But I've always had an element of struggle that I had to face. I'm not totally blind, but my legal blindness affects me each and every day. It was when I first traveled to England as a music student when I was 19 that I discovered the importance of books connected with travel. And at that time, I really started to collect experiences and ideas. And in many ways, this explains my approach to this particular project. I'm not a biblical theologian. I'm really a parish priest who finished my formal ministry as dean of a small cathedral in Kamloops, BC. I'm not a professional justice advocate. I am admittedly in awe of those who have done this role of writing reflections before me. I realize I stand on the shoulders of giants, Sylvia Keysmat, Carrie Manvin. Yeah. So I'm a bit surprised you asked me, but I'm really glad you did. But my approach was not to start with a scripture and not to start with the liturgical year and not to start with the arts. It was experiences. So in many ways, some of these, if you took the scripture piece out, they could function in a secular newspaper as a thought for the day. Um, one, I often start then from not a theological or an ecclesiological place, but I often start from quotations I find in the secular world. I've just finished a wonderful book by an Irish author, Neil Williams, called This is Happiness. He reflects as an old man fictionally about the community in which he lived and moved and had his being. He's a beautiful stylist. It took me a long time to read the book because I kept underlining and sometimes emailing to myself the beautiful quotes as he captured the moments of life in a powerful way. Here's one such quote. I can't say I knew what would happen next. By a crossed wire in our brains, it's only after a thing happens that you realize you knew it was going to happen. In this life, I could see that coming, and I couldn't see that coming. Both amount to the same thing. So he talks about past, present, and future through the lens of lived experience. And the title, This is Happiness, just says life is happiness. Doesn't mean it's all good, and it doesn't mean it's all tragedy. And the Irish celebrate both really well through poetry and through music. But I just love the way he plays constantly with past, present, and future. And this is what Advent does. We are anchored in real time, real place, reality. And yet Advent pushes us to look into the future and raises themes like hope and desires like peace and peacemaking, and elements of the human existence like love and joy, and kind of messes with them. Advent traditionally has been divided in half. The first two Sundays thinking about God coming in some way in a future world, though still affecting us in the present. In the same way that Eucharistic celebration does the opposite, takes aspects of tradition, the scriptural tradition, the traditions of the church, but in particular, the words and experience and presence of Jesus, and makes them real in the present, so we have confidence for the future. Advent I see as a kind of messing with these three things all the time. And no wonder the book of Revelation ends with I'm the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. If you think what you experience now of God is all that is there to be experienced, well, you're missing a huge part of the revelation. Those of us preaching this week have a great opportunity to delve into Revelation as part of a celebration of the reign of Christ. It's one of those Sundays where we kind of put everything together before we plunge into Advent in just a few days' time. And then we hear the themes, we meet the traditional characters. The heroes, I would say, except one of my devotions is called Heroes, and I raise the question, do we need heroes? I think of heroes like Desmond Tutu, but then I think of my scriptural heroes, John the Baptist. And then, of course, we get to Mary, who in many ways is the ultimate hero. But do we need heroes? We need models. We need people whose physical lives can be compared, contrasted, and inspirational for our own lives. So let's cut to day number 2. So pleased you were willing to include my photographs. Go back to the photograph for a minute. You probably recognize it, but you may not know where it is. It's the observation car from one of the old Canadian class trains. There were two major corridors for those trains. Through Banff ran the Canadian Pacific, and through Jasper ran the Canadian National versions of the same train. The Canadian Pacific one is still running. I'm not sure about the other. This picture is taken in Jasper. And it's a display, it's a monument to that particular history of train travel. And given the recent destruction of portions of the town of Jasper, I'm not sure if this exists anymore. And Advent's like that. Do we know what the future holds? Do we know completely or fully understand what history and past traditions have served us? We're always dealing with, looking into the future, what Canadian Jesuit Bernard Lonergan used to talk about, the known unknown. There are things we know. We know that if our fingers touch our forehead, that they are two parts of our body which connect briefly, but also, in a sense, have a life of their own, though they are always connected. There are unknown things about our bodies, maybe our physical health or the length of our lives, or maybe if we happen to be dealing with a medical concern, we're not quite sure how that's all going to unfold. Advent is that time when we look into the future with confidence and certainty of what we have known and experienced, but not total clarity about next steps, or maybe even the future a month away, a year away, or the end of our life away. People Get Ready was the title, and I love that idea of people climbing up on those steps, and yet those are obviously emergency exits. I wouldn't have the physique to be able to get through that window going on the train that way. Nevertheless, Advent is a season which invites us to an adventure. I begin with scripture. Keep awake, therefore, you do not know on what day your Lord is coming, but understand this. If the owner of the house had known in part the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would not have let his house be broken into. Therefore, you must always be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. I personalize it. And my wife will hear this in the recording. She doesn't know I said this in this way at this time. My wife and I have very different perspectives on the management of time. Call it family upbringing, differing personalities, or conflicting organizational habits, whatever. When we need to be somewhere at a particular time, I will say something like, we need to be there ready to function by, let's say, 10:27. She, however, is more relaxed about timing and schedules. Admittedly, I may be a bit obsessive. She, however, might benefit from a more disciplined punctuality. I still maintain that showing up on time is good. Early is okay too. Advent is that exciting season of the church year when we look to the future from our place in the present. Advent invites us and prods us to pay attention to what is going on locally, globally, all around us, and within us. As the children's song goes, God is a surprise. So be ready to be surprised. Prepare what is unpredictable. Living the Christian life in places as varied as Parksville, Port-au-Prince, Portland, and Paris shapes what we see and how we look. It's not that truth is merely contextual. Context, however, influences what and how we see, what simply is. PWRDF creates a golden opportunity to us to look and to see unpredictably, to discover eco-justice realities in the lives of partner churches, communities, and persons nationally and globally. There's an old 1965 single recorded by the Impressions, People Get Ready, that has become for me an Advent anthem. Advent calls us, all people, to get ready, to open the doors, to get on board together for justice, peace, and the integrity of creation. Perhaps this song can be your prayer for today and every day.